Mr. President.
Senator from Iowa.
I come to the floor today concerned that the Senate's advice and consent role is being undermined. It's being undermined by obstruction from Senate Democrats that threaten to keep the Justice Department from functioning as the American people expect and the American people deserve. The Office of Legislative Affairs serves as a crucial bridge between the Justice Department and this Congress. This relationship is essential not only for the legislative process, but for maintaining constitutional oversight and accountability. Office of Legislative Affairs ensures that we as lawmakers have the timely information needed to craft legislation, conduct oversight, and fulfill our constitutional duties. When we seek answers, whether it's on criminal justice or immigration or national security, it's the Office of Legislative Affairs that takes our questions and returns the responses. This function can't run on autopilot. Yet today, the Office of Legislative Affairs is hobbled. It lacks a Senate-confirmed Assistant Attorney General to lead that office. Why? Because Senate Democrats have decided to impede the confirmation of all Justice Department nominees without exception. That is not the constitutional role of advice and consent. That is obstruction. Every senator has the right to raise concerns about nominees. That's our constitutional role. That's our duty. And holds of specific nominees for specific reasons at times is very appropriate. It's an appropriate tool for any senator to use. I have even used that tool, and I've also done it on nominees. But the process demands fairness. It demands common sense. We should weigh each nominee individually, not slam the brakes on an entire agency, especially one for keeping Americans safe. So I'm here at the floor because of the nomination of Patrick Davis, pending on the Senate calendar now for 2 months. This is regrettable because he's an exceptionally qualified nominee, and this senator should know because he worked for this senator. Mr. Davis brings a strong record of public service and a deep understanding of the legislative process gained from his time working for me on the Senate Judiciary Committee. I'm confident he will lead the Office of Legislative Affairs with diligence, with fairness, and with integrity. He should be confirmed today, and I'm here to ask my colleagues to do just that. Obstructing his nomination serves absolutely no one. Many senators, myself included, have outstanding requests to the Justice Department that we expect answers to. I understand that some senators may complain that they haven't received a response to their own outstanding requests. I've made such complaints myself over the years under both Republican and Democrat administrations. But I don't believe that obstructing this particular qualified nominee who can help get the response we need will address their concerns. I also understand that some senators are unhappy with the current administration and are using Justice Department nominees to make their displeasure known. To these colleagues, I'll simply say that the obstruction of qualified nominees to lead the Office of Legislative Affairs makes it harder for the Department of Justice to engage with Congress and harder for Congress to do its job. This ultimately ends up hurting the American people. I'm asking this body to uphold a fair confirmation process so that the Justice Department can effectively engage with Congress. Blocking the confirmation of Patrick Davis does not serve the Senate, it does not serve the interest of justice, and it does not serve the American people. So I'm here, Mr. President, to ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the consideration of the following nomination: Executive Calendar number 92, Patrick Davis to be Assistant Attorney General. That the Senate vote on the nomination without intervening action or debate. The motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table, and that the President be immediately notified of the Senate's actions.
Is there objection?
Reserving the right to object.
The Democratic leader.
And I will object for two reasons. First, a few weeks ago, I announced I'm placing holds on all DOJ political nominations because the Attorney General refuses to answer fundamental questions about Donald Trump seeking a luxury plane from Qatar to use as Air Force One. This is a grave national security threat, as everyone knows. The bottom line is very simple on this plane. The President of the United States accepted a luxury jet from a foreign government to use as his personal Air Force One. It wasn't just unethical, it reeked of corruption, of bribery, and threatened our national security. That whole plane will have to be taken apart piece by piece to make sure listening devices aren't in it, and even be more expensive. And yet the Justice Department didn't look the other way. They approved it. That's so typical of this Justice Department. In something that I think if a Democratic president did it, the senator from Iowa would be the first on the floor to stand to object. Now we hear silence. Silence. They won't even answer serious questions about this. This plane should be withdrawn. And I have introduced legislation to do that. But that's not the only reason. Donald Trump has turned the Justice Department upside down. It is politicized, it is weaponized, it is hollowed out. Donald Trump and his acolytes in the Justice Department are less interested in prosecuting criminals and more interested in prosecuting Trump's perceived political opponents. This is an absolute disgrace. Both sides, in past administrations, Democrat and Republican, have worked together to uphold the rule of law at DOJ. But now, the rule of law has been replaced by loyalty tests. When this Justice Department is as horrible as it is, as political as it is, as destructive of American values as it has been, no way. The nominee is a former staffer for the very senator making the request. Now, as my colleague noted, in the past, he's been up there when other administrations made ethical violations and did the wrong thing in his judgment. But now there's just silence from my colleague and from all of the Republican senators, and they know what's going on. They know what's going on. But blind obeisance to Donald Trump is wrong when it comes to something as sacred as this: rule of law and a Justice Department that seeks to enforce the law, not just go after political enemies. If Donald Trump and Republicans want to poison and politicize our justice system, I'm not participating, and I object. And I'd add one more point with deep regret. What is happening to the Judiciary Committee and the Justice Department is shameful. Inspector generals have been dismissed with no accountability. Again, my colleague who used to uphold the inspectors general and praise them Tons of them are dismissed now. The American Bar Association has been sidelined. And today, up in the Justice Department, unqualified judicial nominees, some barely out of law school, are being rushed through confirmation. This is not how the Senate should work. It didn't work that way when there was a Democratic president and my friend was chairman of the Judiciary Committee. There will be there should be no special treatment. None. Not for political allies, not for former staffers, not for anyone. What Trump and Bondi are doing to the Justice Department and the rule of law is dangerous. It undermines public trust, erodes the rule of law. The Senate should not be complicit. I object.
The objection is heard.
President,
Senator from Iowa.
I'm sorry to hear of the objection. I'd like to correct one thing that Senator Schumer said, that Patrick Davis didn't have a hearing before the committee. We did hold a hearing on Patrick Davis. I yield the floor.
For the many reasons that I've listed. Quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsop Brooks.
Mr. President, I
Senator from Iowa.
ask that the call of the quorum be suspended.
Without objection. The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Michelle Bowman of Kansas to be Vice Chairman for the supervision of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System for a term of 4 years, signed by 17 senators.
Under the previous order, the mandatory quorum call under Rule 22 has been waived. The question is it the sense of the Senate that debate on the nomination of Michelle Bowman of Kansas to be Vice Chairman for supervision of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System for a term of 4 years shall be brought to a close? The yeas and the nays are mandatory under the rule. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsop Brooks, Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Banks, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn, Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Blunt-Rochester, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Britt, Mr. Budd, Ms. Cantwell, Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Cornyn, Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Curtis, Mr. Daines, Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst.
Aye.
Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gallego, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty, Ms. Hassan, Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Hoven, Mr. Husted, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice, Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis, Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Moreno, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young. Senators voting in the affirmative: Barrasso, Blackburn, Bozeman, Cotton, Ernst, Grassley, Marshall, McCormick, Mullen, Ricketts, Thune, and Tuberville. Senators voting in the negative: Gillibrand, Hassan, Hickenlooper, Kane, Kelly, Lujan, Murray, Peters, Rosen, Schatz, Warren, and Whitehouse. Mr. Schmidt. Mr. Schmidt, aye. Mr. Budd. Mr. Budd, aye. Mr. Haggerty. Mr. Haggerty, aye. Mr. Schiff. Mr. Schiff, no. Mr. Langford. Mr. Langford, aye. Mrs. Fisher. Mrs. Fisher, aye. Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy, aye. Mr. Crapo. Mr. Crapo, aye. Mr. Moreno. Mr. Moreno, aye. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith, no. Mr. Coons. Mr. Coons, no. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Padilla, no. Mr. Kim. Mr. Kim, no. Ms. Lummis. Ms. Lummis. Aye. Mr. Rounds. Mr. Rounds. Aye. Mrs. Moody. Mrs. Moody. Aye. Ms. Baldwin. Ms. Baldwin. No. Mr. Young. Mr. Young. Aye. Ms. Klobuchar. Ms. Klobuchar. No. Mr. Gallego. Mr. Gallego. No. Mr. Shaheen. Mr. Shaheen. No. Mr. Banks. Mr. Banks. Aye. Mr. Van Hollen. Mr. Van Hollen. No. Mr. Wyden? Mr. Wyden? No. Mr. Merkley? Mr. Merkley? No. Mr. Heinrich? Mr. Heinrich? No. Mr. Cornyn? Mr. Cornyn? Aye. Mr. Curtis? Mr. Curtis? Aye. Mr. Murphy? Mr. Murphy? No. Mr. Crapo? Mr. Crapo? Aye. Mr. Schumer? Mr. Schumer? No. Mr. Justice? Mr. Justice? Aye. Mr. Moran? Mr. Moran? Aye. Mrs. Hyde-Smith? Mrs. Hyde-Smith? Aye. Ms. Blunt Rochester? Ms. Blunt Rochester? No. Ms. Duckworth? Ms. Duckworth? No. Ms. Collins? Ms. Collins? Aye. Mr. Husted? Mr. Husted? Aye. Ms. Slotkin. Ms. Slotkin. No. Mr. King. Mr. King. No. Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed. No. Mr. Welch. Mr. Welch. No. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson. Aye. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wicker. Aye. Mr. Booker. Mr. Booker. No. Mr. Risch. Mr. Risch. Aye. Mr. Sanders. Mr. Sanders. No. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Hawley. Aye. Mr. Tillis. Mr. Tillis. Aye. Mr. Cassidy. Mr. Cassidy. Aye. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Durbin. No. Mr. Paul. Mr. Paul, aye. Mr. McConnell. Mr. McConnell, aye. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, aye. Mr. Warnock. Mr. Warnock, no. Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott of Florida, aye. Ms. Cortez Masto. Ms. Cortez Masto, no. Mr. Warner. Mr. Warner, no. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blumenthal, no. Mr. Fetterman. Mr. Fetterman, no. Mrs. Britt. Mrs. Britt, aye. Ms. Cantwell. Ms. Cantwell, no. Mr. Hoven. Mr. Hoven, aye. Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan, aye. Mr. Daines. Mr. Daines, aye. Mr. Kramer. Mr. Kramer, aye. Mr. Graham. Mr. Graham, aye. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz, aye. Mr. Scott of South Carolina, aye. Mr. Markey, no. Mr. Bennett, no. Ms. Hirono, no. Ms. Murkowski, aye. Ms. Also Brooks, no.
On this vote, the yeas are 51, the nays are 46, and the motion is agreed to. Under the previous order, the mandatory quorum, the clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of Edward Walsh of New Jersey to be an ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary of the United States of America to Ireland, signed by 17 senators.
Under the previous order, the mandatory quorum call under Rule 22. The question is it the sense of the Senate that the debate on the nomination of Edward Walsh of New Jersey to be ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary of the United States of America to Ireland shall be brought to a close? The yeas and nays are mandatory under the rule. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Also Brooks. Ms. Baldwin. Mr. Banks. Mr. Banks, Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett. Mrs. Blackburn, Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Blunt Rochester, Mr. Booker.
Yeah, bring him.
Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Britt, Mr. Budd, Ms. Cantwell, Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Cornyn, Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Curtis, Mr. Deans, Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst, Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gallego, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty, Ms. Hassan,
Hey, Lisa.
Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Hoven, Mr. Husted, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice, Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis, Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Moreno, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith. Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Thune. Mr. Tillis. Mr. Tuberville. Mr. Van Hollen. Mr. Warner. Mr. Warnock. Ms. Warren. Mr. Welch. Mr. Whitehouse. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wyden. Mr. Young. Senators voting in the affirmative: Bozeman, Britt, Cornyn, Cotton, Cruz, Curtis, Ernst, Fetterman, Fisher, Gallego, Hoeven, Johnson, Justice, King, Lee, McCormick, Moran, Murkowski, Paul, Reed, Ricketts, Sullivan, and Warner. Senators voting in the negative: Alsobrooks, Bennett, Blumenthal, Blunt-Rochester, Cantwell, Cortez Masto, Duckworth, Gillibrand, Heinrich, Hirono, Kim, Markey, Murray, Padilla, Rosen, Sanders, Schatz, and Whitehouse. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith, no. Mrs. Hyde-Smith. Mrs. Hyde-Smith, aye. Mr. Mullen. Mr. Mullen, aye. Ms. Baldwin. Ms. Baldwin, no. Mr. Hickenlooper. Mr. Hickenlooper, no. Mr. Schiff. Mr. Schiff, no. Mr. Langford. Mr. Langford, aye. Mr. Marshall. Mr. Marshall, aye. Ms. Hassan. Ms. Hassan, no. Ms. Lotkin. Ms. Lotkin, no. Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, no. Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wicker, aye. Mr. Daines. Mr. Daines, aye. Mr. Husted. Mr. Husted, aye. Mr. Merkley. Mr. Merkley, no. Mr. Booker. Mr. Booker, no. Mr. Wyden. Mr. Wyden, no. Mr. Peters. Mr. Peters, no. Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy, aye. Mr. Grassley. Mr. Grassley, aye. Mr. Rounds. Mr. Rounds, aye. Mr. Risch. Mr. Risch, aye. Ms. Collins. Ms. Collins, aye. Mr. Young. Mr. Young, aye. Mr. Coons. Mr. Coons, no. Mr. Moreno. Mr. Moreno, aye. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Schumer, no. Ms. Warren, no. Mr. Kelly, no. Mr. Kane, aye. Mrs. Moody, aye. Mrs. Blackburn, aye. The Ms. Klobuchar, aye. Mr. Barrasso, aye. Mr. Warnock, no. Mr. Van Hollen, no. Mr. Lujan, no. Mr. Scott of Florida, aye. Mr. Haggerty, aye. Mr. Budd? Aye. Mr. Tuberville, aye. Mr. Crapo, aye. Mr. Banks, aye. Mr. Graham, aye. Ms. Lummis? Aye.
Thanks for coming.
Mr. Welch, aye. Mr. Scott of South Carolina, aye. Mr. Durbin, no. Mr. Tillis, aye. Mrs. Shaheen, no. Mrs. Shaheen, aye. Mr. Kramer, aye. Mr. Thune, aye. Mr. Schmidt, aye. Thank you. Mr. Hawley, aye.
On this vote, the yeas are 60, the nays are 37. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Department of State, Edward Walsh of New Jersey, to be Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the United States of America to Ireland.
Mr. President.
Senator from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. President. What we have come to realize is under the last administration, the American people really suffered from open borders, crime, and lawlessness. And they spoke out about this, and in November, they issued a mandate to President Trump. And of course, we talk a lot about the economic impact of that. We talk about the health, but we also focus on the Make America Safe Again provisions. And I will say this, since he was elected in November and sworn in January, President Trump has done exactly that. He has worked to make this country safe, to make our communities safer. And what we have seen in operations across the country is that the Trump administration has committed to getting criminal, illegal aliens out of our communities and off of our streets. We have seen that in Tennessee. Now, in recent weeks, the Department of Homeland Security has worked with the Tennessee State Highway Patrol, and they have arrested 196 criminal illegal aliens in Nashville, Tennessee. Now, these are people that ought not to have ever been in the country. They're violent criminals, members of Tren de Aragua, members of MS-13. They're drug dealers, they're sex traffickers, they're human traffickers. And you know what? People said, I can't believe we had that many drug dealers, sex traffickers, gang leaders, gang cubs that were here in our community. And when you start to look at the crimes of some of these people, Mr. President, people are aghast at what they have learned. And they're grateful that President Trump, Secretary Noem, Tom Homan, who is our border czar, decided to come into Nashville and get these people off our streets and out of our communities. Now, here's what we know about some of these. One of them is a Salvadoran national who is affiliated with MS-13. Now, he probably left El Salvador because he has been wanted for murder in his home country. That's the charge against him, murder. Tennesseans are saying, look, we want to make certain we get these individuals deported. And I was talking to one of our local law enforcement officers there in Middle Tennessee, and I said, tell me what you think about ICE and Homeland Security and the work they're doing. He said, I am happy to see them here. We welcome them. We're glad they're working with the Highway Patrol, because when you get these criminals and these gang leaders off our streets, you make the community safer and you make our jobs a little bit safer. And we're seeing the benefits of these deportations of criminal illegal aliens on a nationwide scale. I give you the example of Nashville because I represent Tennessee. But we know that nationally, since Inauguration Day, ICE has arrested more than 66,000 criminal illegal aliens. The vast majority have prior criminal convictions and charges, including, as I've mentioned, violent MS-13 and Tren de Aragua gang members. Thousands more were charged or convicted of assault, weapons offenses, sex crimes, and murder. And when these criminals are taken off the street, you know what happens, Mr. President? Crime goes down. Safety improves. Now, in February, and I think this is a great example of results. So in February, ICE targeted more than 100 Tren de Aragua gang members that had taken over an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado. Many people saw this. I'm certain many of my colleagues saw this reporting on the news. Now, that same quarter, that first quarter of the year, overall crime in the city declined by 22%. That is what happens when you go after people that are breaking the law, that have come into the country illegally and came in with ill intent. Now, despite the success that we have seen, whether it's Nashville or whether it's Aurora, Colorado, my Democratic colleagues are still demonizing these efforts in law enforcement and demanding an end to arrest and trying to stop deportations, and some are even working to undermine our brave and courageous law enforcement officers. Now, the mayor's office in Nashville has been one that has tried to obstruct these. And they were claiming that ICE's detainment of violent gang members and rapists is, and I quote them, making it harder to keep people safe. So the mayor's office and the mayor doxed federal law enforcement officers who were involved in these operations. They released their names, they released details about different operations, so they were doxing and unmasking the operation and the investigator or the agent's name. So what happens when the mayor does that is basically you're serving up a treasure trove of information to the gang leaders. You make the officers less safe, all law enforcement officers. You make the communities less safe, and you encourage people to target the operations or the officers. So what we have seen is this makes the job of law enforcement more difficult. It undermines President Trump's efforts to make our nation safe. And in essence, it has turned Nashville into a sanctuary city. And interestingly enough, in the state of Tennessee, it is illegal to have a sanctuary city. And because of the actions of the office of the mayor and Mayor O'Connell, DHS has deemed Nashville a sanctuary jurisdiction. And all of this we need to realize is happening as ICE agents have seen over the past couple of months a 413% increase in assaults. I will tell you, I think that our law enforcement officers, our Homeland Security investigators, and our agents deserve our support for removing criminal, illegal aliens from our communities. So, on Friday, I sent a letter urging A.G. Bondi to investigate the mayor's actions and the actions of his office and determine whether he is using taxpayer dollars to aid illegal aliens and to obstruct our federal law enforcement efforts. I will also use every tool in the Senate to investigate the mayor in his office and hold him to account for threatening the safety of Tennesseans. And make no mistake, if the mayor is found by the Department of Justice to be working outside of the rule of law, he should resign his position. And unfortunately, he's not the only Democrat mayor that needs DOJ to investigate them. We've seen the mayors of Chicago and Boston in their offices. They've repeatedly stated that their police departments will refuse to cooperate with ICE to apprehend criminal illegal aliens. Now think about this. These are criminals that are robbing people, they're doing carjackings, they're assaulting people. Many of them are abusing children. They're wanted in their home countries. And you have elected officials that are siding with and trying to protect criminal illegal aliens instead of siding with and trying to protect law-abiding citizens. While this obstruction makes it harder for federal law enforcement to do their jobs, they're still working to remove these criminals from the streets of Chicago and Boston and, of course, Nashville. Just last month, ICE announced that they arrested the Tren de Aragua gang members who shot and killed 3 people at a house party in Chicago in December. Criminal illegal aliens shot and killed 3 citizens. And in Boston, ICE agents apprehended nearly 1,500 illegal aliens during Operation Patriot last month, making the largest ICE operation to date in our nation's history. More than half of those 1,500 have major criminal convictions, not just charged, but convictions and charges. Murder, rape, drug trafficking, abuse of children, all among that number, 1,500. These are horrific crimes committed by illegal alien criminals who are roaming free in American cities until ICE comes in and apprehends them. While they continue to side with criminals, these Democrat mayors and those city councils, Republicans are supporting the president's efforts to maintain the rule of law so that there are no more innocent victims like Larisha Sherelle Thompson, a South Carolina mother of 2, who was allegedly murdered in cold blood last month by 6 illegal aliens who were trying to steal her car. Or Ava Moore, an 18-year-old Air Force cadet candidate who was killed while kayaking in Texas over Memorial Day weekend by an illegal alien who, according to authorities, hit her with a jet ski and then fled the scene. Or the 12 people, including a Holocaust survivor, who were set on fire on Sunday in an anti-Semitic terror attack. The suspect, an Egyptian national who overstayed his visa after entering under Biden's open borders. Mr. President, this has to come to a stop. And Tennesseans say, what can we do about this? Well, I have the CLEAR Act, which we've had for a time. It would ensure that state and local law enforcement officials have the explicit authority to assist the federal government in our immigration enforcement efforts. Basically, it would codify the 287G program. And this week, I'm introducing legislation that is backed by the White House, which would establish a deportation shot clock, which would require the federal government to deport an illegal alien within 15 days of a court order for removal. Right now, it takes 90 days. We think the deportation shot clock will empower the Trump administration to expedite deportations of these criminals and get them off our streets. And following the dangerous actions of our Nashville Mayor O'Connell and his office, I'm also introducing legislation that will make it illegal to dox federal law enforcement officials who are working to get these criminal illegal aliens off the streets. We realized after this occurrence that they were not included in the covered persons provisions. So I invite my Democrat colleagues to join us in this. If not, I invite them to come down here, talk about why they would choose to support criminal, illegal aliens instead of working to make our communities safer and to uphold the rule of law. Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent that the Senate recess following the cloture vote on the O'Neill nomination until 4 p.m. today.
Without objection.
It's coming.
Senator from Hawaii.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, no one asked for this. No one asked for the biggest wealth transfer in American history, from the poorest people in the country to the richest people to ever exist. No one asked for the biggest ever cuts to Medicaid, to kick 14 million people off of health insurance, and raise out-of-pocket costs for 20 million people. No one asked for food assistance to be slashed for millions of children and low-income families. No one asked for higher prices at the pump or on their electricity bills. No one asked for students across the country to lose federal financial aid. No one asked for any of this. And I really mean that. That's not just a rhetorical flourish. I don't think Trump voters asked for this. I know Harris voters did not ask for this. I don't think anybody really wants this. I think the reason that all of these crazy, harmful policies are about to be enacted is for one simple reason, and that is to generate enough revenue to satisfy the insatiable desire for tax cuts for people who make more than $4 million a year. They are literally taking money out of food assistance and Medicaid and Affordable Care Act, monthly subsidies. By the way, you don't know if you get a subsidy or not. You just go on the exchange and you pay the thing. The thing is, that thing is probably $400, $500, $600 a month less than it used to be because of the subsidies. So it's one thing to say 14 million people are going to get kicked off of Medicaid, and they will. It's another thing to say, because of those Medicaid cuts, a bunch of clinics and hospitals in rural communities are going to shut down, and they will. I think what's a little underrated is many, many more millions of people are going to pay not $50 more a year, not $100 more per month, but many hundreds of dollars more per month. Why? Because when you yank that money out of the system, it is what is called a pay-for. It means it generates a ton of revenue. How does it generate that revenue? By screwing regular people. They are racing to pass a bill that does all of these things, that raises the the debt by many, many trillions of dollars. And I think the problem that some of us have, and I really appreciate the presiding officer, and when we agree, we work really well together, and when we disagree, we are at least able to stay civil. And so I'm trying to take the edge off of this. But one of the reasons that it sounds like I'm frothing at the mouth and saying a bunch of partisan talking points is that it's kind of hard to believe that any political party would actually do this on purpose. It is quite hard to believe that you would cut food assistance and cut health care and cut help for regular working people in order to shovel money to people making more than $4 million a year. But that is exactly what they're doing. It is as if they designed this bill in a lab to make the maximum number of people angry. It's unpopular, it is unnecessary, and they're doing it anyway. Hospitals serving rural and low-income communities will be forced to shutter because they won't be adequately compensated for their services. And by the way, again, not a talking point. Go and visit any rural clinic or hospital. Ask them what percentage of their payer mix comes from Medicaid and what would happen if they lost a big chunk of that. A lot of them say, the big ones, the big is relative, but in the state of Hawaii, our big institutions say, well, we could stay afloat. We just have to deliver a lot less care. And then everybody would end up in the ER, right? The Queens Medical Center, the sort of #1 trauma center right in the middle of Honolulu, is already bursting at the seams. You've got multiple people in the hallways. All of the rooms, all of the beds are taken. It was just a couple of months ago that they finally figured out a way not to release the psychiatric emergencies right onto Punchbowl Avenue in their hospital gowns. That's before they do this to the hospitals. After the ACA passed, you go on the exchange, select a plan, and pay a fraction of what you used to pay. And I think one of the things is that the Obamacare is now so old that people forgot how horrible it was before then. Really horrible. And so now you just go on and you're kind of irritated because it's still money and it still feels like too much and it still feels like your HMO or your provider, kind of nitpicks you and, doesn't cover a bunch of care and the copays are too high. But it is way, way, way better than it used to be. And so this whole enterprise is for one single purpose, and that is to generate enough money to cut taxes for billionaire corporations and people who make $4 million or more in revenue. It's very, very few people benefiting and tens of millions of people being screwed. There's little in this bill that will help regular people who are already struggling to meet their monthly obligations, but there are plenty of rewards for the ultra-wealthy. Millionaires stand to gain roughly $70,000 in tax cuts, while billionaires in the top 1% will see close to $300,000 in benefits. And how do they find that money to shovel to the millionaires and billionaires? I don't mind a millionaire or billionaire. I know like 2 billionaires, not close, but I've met them. And I'm sure I know many millionaires. There are a number of colleagues in the Senate who are in that category. So it's not like, I'm not trying to demonize anybody. I'm just saying, do they need $300,000? Because I know people who need $300. I know people who actually won't be able to stay on any health care at all if these subsidies go away. This is not the closing of loopholes. This is not fiscal discipline. And I want to make this point as clearly as I can. We would be in a harder position to argue against this bill if it were actually deficit neutral, right? Because traditionally the accusation against Democrats is they want to bust the budget and Republicans want to be responsible. But this one's weird because this is under the guise of we got to do austerity, we got to do tough stuff, we got to cut. And then they come up with a bill that actually increases the deficit over baseline, even when they do their kind of nonsensical accounting where they basically have stopped counting the tax cuts that are in place because that's the baseline. And so the whole enterprise, and everybody needs to understand this, They are making everything more expensive. That is food, that is medicine, that is groceries, that is gasoline, that is electricity. And the reason they're making it more expensive is because they are either indifferent to the suffering, or more importantly, they just need the money. And they don't need the money to, we've raised taxes in the past as a country to fight a war, right? To beat Nazism. Or we've raised taxes in the past to shrink the deficit. Or we've raised taxes and raised costs for people to invest in something important. That's not what we're doing here. We are blowing up the budget, and we are harming regular people in order to provide tax cuts for people who literally didn't ask for it. I yield the floor.
President.
Senator from Rhode Island.
Mr. President, I'm here to ask unanimous consent on a very simple measure to make sure that the data systems of Social Security were not compromised, that no data was exfiltrated, no bugs were infiltrated, and no backdoors were left in when Elon Musk and his little gang of miscreants went into Social Security. I'll talk more about this afterwards, but the chairman of the Finance Committee has elsewhere to be, so I will speak after I've offered this, and he's responded, and so I will go directly to my unanimous consent request, which is, as if in legislative session and notwithstanding Rule 22, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of my bill S-1943, introduced earlier today, that the bill be considered read 3 times and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there an objection?
Mr. President.
Senator from Idaho.
Mr. President, I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President, unanimous consent because I have to leave for a meeting right now, that my remarks to explain my objection be placed in the record.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Senator from Rhode Island.
So these remarks would ordinarily precede the exchange that we just had, but as a courtesy to the distinguished chairman of the Finance Committee, we're going a little bit out of order, so I will now fill in the statement that I would have made. Senator Crapo is obviously well aware of my concerns here. As I said at the very beginning, we have reason to believe that Elon Musk and his little gang of frat boy, tech bro miscreants, call them the Muskrats, call them the Doggy Boys, whatever you want, that they went into Social Security with bad intent. The cover that they went in under was they were going to look for waste, fraud, and abuse. But I think we know that the waste, fraud, and abuse veil in which the Doggy Boys wrapped themselves was a fake. Because if you were actually concerned about waste, fraud, and abuse, you wouldn't fire all the inspectors general. You'd actually probably try to recruit the inspectors general into your so-called government efficiency effort, because what inspectors general do all day is actually look for waste, fraud, and abuse. And you could go through their files and say, here, what are the biggest areas that we should be paying attention to? And you'd work with the inspectors general. Instead, they were fired. That whole apparatus to actually seek waste, fraud, and abuse was set aside. And in came the Doggy Boys, a little bit like in Cat in the Hat, Thing 1 and Thing 2, except that there were 100 more of them running around doing considerable damage to government agencies and government systems. And to a very significant extent, I think doing damage to government agencies and systems was the point. This was not the bug, this was the feature. They went in to try to wreck stuff. And it became particularly dangerous around Social Security. Because first of all, there was a propaganda campaign to talk down Social Security, to pretend falsely that it was riddled with fraud. That took place, including right over on the House floor, when the president came to speak to Congress and repeatedly lied about Social Security fraud. Then you had the infiltration of people who were from tech bro world and from private equity world, exactly who would want to take over Social Security. And then you had people talking up benefit interruptions, like that was an okay thing. Well, a benefit interruption would be the excuse to go in and take over Social Security, to privatize it with tech bros and with private equity people. So I think the noise that we made about that headed it off, but there remains the lingering danger that when they got into Social Security's data systems, they exfiltrated data because data has enormous value, or they infiltrated bugs to do damage to the old systems of Social Security, or, worst of all perhaps, they left back doors so that Elon Musk or other folks who are interested in getting access to massive amounts of Americans' data can find their way in to Social Security's data system secretly. So this is a very simple measure. It asks for an audit of Social Security data systems to make sure that those things did not happen. That really ought to be a bipartisan, if not unanimous, expression of Senate intention, and that's why I hoped that we could generate unanimous consent for it today. With that, I yield the floor to the distinguished ranking member of the Committee on Finance, Senator Wyden.
I thank my colleague, and Mr. President, I rise in support of his efforts. He is a valued member of the Senate Finance Committee, and this is a thoughtful approach to bring accountability at Social Security. The legislation directs the Independent Nonpartisan Government Accountability Office to conduct a top-to-bottom audit of Social Security's databases, and in the process, determine whether DOJ left the agency vulnerable to cyber attacks when its agents gained unfettered access to agency records. Americans want to know whether the DOJ agents violated federal privacy and cybersecurity laws when they accessed their personal information. Now, I've said it once, I'll repeat it again. Social Security's databases represent the Fort Knox of Americans' personal lives. I see our friend from South Dakota here. He is a member of the Intelligence Committee. We've talked about privacy issues on a number of occasions, and privacy is what the White House legislation is all about. This whole question of the Social Security databases involves people's bank account numbers, their home addresses, work history, salaries, medical records. The list goes on and on. Social Security, under the direction of the DOJ-appointed acting commissioner, let Mr. Musk's cronies stroll in without raising a finger. It remains to be seen what's going to happen with Mr. Musk no longer leading DOJ and the new commissioner, Mr. Bisignano, taking the helm at Social Security. It's clear that DOJ accessed the original records under false pretenses, and they were claiming that there was rampant fraud throughout the Social Security program. As the top Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee, I've been demanding evidence from the Trump administration for some time now about the existence of all this, quote, fraud. Social Security has refused to provide me with a single shred of evidence.
The senator's time has expired.
I would ask unanimous consent, Mr. President, and my friend from South Dakota for 3 additional minutes.
Without objection.
I thank my colleague. Social Security, as I say, has refused to provide me with a shred of evidence because we already know from the Social Security watchdog that Social Security fraud, and colleagues, this is the relevant number, represents 0.009% of payments. So we have known for some time that this effort is part of the Trump plan to cut American Social Security benefits. I believe the long-term objective is to privatize the program so it can be sold off to some billionaires and you could weaponize Social Security to go after groups it wants to target. This effort is also part of what Donald Trump, Mr. Musk, and Peter Thiel have made a broader effort all about, and that's to collect and compile a master list of personal information on each American, pulling from the IRS, the Departments of Homeland Security, Education, and Social Security. I close by saying, thankfully, federal courts have slowed DOJ's access to Social Security records for now. But the fact is there needs to be a comprehensive understanding of the damage and to make sure Americans' data is protected. That's why Senator Whitehouse's legislation is so important. I urge passage and I yield back.
Mr. President,
The senator from South Dakota.
I ask unanimous consent to waive the mandatory quorum call with respect to the O'Neill nomination.
Without objection. The clerk will report the motion to invoke cloture.
Cloture motion. We, the undersigned senators, in accordance with the provisions of Rule 22 of the Standing Rules of the Senate, do hereby move to bring to a close debate on the nomination of James O'Neill of California to be Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services, signed by 16 senators.
Under the previous order, the mandatory quorum call under Rule 22 has been waived. A quorum is present. The question is it the sense of the Senate that debate on the nomination of James O'Neill of California to be Deputy Secretary of Health and Human Services shall be brought to a close? The yeas and nays are mandatory under the rule. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alsobrooks, Ms. Baldwin, Mr. Banks.
Aye.
Mr. Barrasso, Mr. Bennett, Mrs. Blackburn, Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Blunt-Rochester, Mr. Booker, Mr. Bozeman, Mrs. Britt, Mr. Budd, Ms. Campwell, Mrs. Capito, Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Collins, Mr. Coons, Mr. Cornyn, Ms. Cortez Masto, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Kramer, Mr. Crapo, Mr. Cruz, Mr. Curtis, Mr. Daines, Ms. Duckworth, Mr. Durbin, Ms. Ernst, Mr. Fetterman, Mrs. Fisher, Mr. Gallego, Mrs. Gillibrand, Mr. Graham, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Haggerty, Ms. Hassan, Mr. Hawley, Mr. Heinrich, Mr. Hickenlooper, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Hoven, Mr. Husted, Mrs. Hyde-Smith, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Justice, Mr. Kane, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Kim, Mr. King, Ms. Klobuchar, Mr. Langford, Mr. Lee, Mr. Lujan, Ms. Lummis, Mr. Markey, Mr. Marshall, Mr. McConnell, Mr. McCormick, Mr. Merkley, Mrs. Moody, Mr. Moran, Mr. Moreno, Mr. Mullen, Ms. Murkowski, Mr. Murphy, Mrs. Murray, Mr. Ossoff, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Paul, Mr. Peters, Mr. Reed, Mr. Ricketts, Mr. Risch, Ms. Rosen, Mr. Rounds, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Schatz, Mr. Schiff, Mr. Schmidt, Mr. Schumer, Mr. Scott of Florida, Mr. Scott of South Carolina, Mrs. Shaheen, Mr. Sheehy, Ms. Slotkin, Ms. Smith, Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Thune, Mr. Tillis, Mr. Tuberville, Mr. Van Hollen, Mr. Warner, Mr. Warnock, Ms. Warren, Mr. Welch, Mr. Whitehouse, Mr. Wicker, Mr. Wyden, Mr. Young, Senators voting in the affirmative: Banks, Barrasso, Blackburn, Bozeman, Britt, Cassidy, Collins, Cornyn, Crapo, Curtis, Daines, Fisher, Grassley, Haggerty, Hoeven, Husted, Hyde-Smith, Johnson, Kennedy, Langford, Lummis, Marshall, McConnell, Moody, Moreno, Murkowski, Paul, Rounds, Schmidt, Scott of Florida, Tuberville, and Wicker. Senators voting in the negative: Cortez Masto, Duckworth, Fetterman, Hassan, Kane, Kim, King, Merkley, Padilla, Schatz, Shaheen, Warnock, Whitehouse, and Wyden. Mr. Scott, South Carolina, aye. Mr. Kramer, aye. Ms. Warren, no. Ms. Klobuchar. Ms. Klobuchar, no. Mr. Graham, aye. Mr. Lee, aye. Mr. Kelly, no. Mr. Risch, aye. Mr. Warner, no. Mr. Welch, no. Ms. Smith, no. Mrs. Murray. Mrs. Murray, no. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Durbin, no. Ms. Slotkin. Ms. Slotkin, no. Mr. Moran. Mr. Moran, aye. Mr. Peters. Mr. Peters, no. Ms. Rosen. Ms. Rosen, no. Mr. Markey. Mr. Markey, no. Ms. Blunt Rochester, no. Mr. Coons. Mr. Coons, no. Mr. Schiff. Mr. Schiff, no. Mr. Heinrich. Mr. Heinrich, no. Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan, aye. Ms. Cantwell. Ms. Cantwell, no. Ms. Ernst. Ms. Ernst, aye. Mr. Sanders. Mr. Sanders, no. Mrs. Gillibrand. Mrs. Gillibrand, no. Mr. Ricketts. Mr. Ricketts, aye. Mr. Thune. Mr. Thune, aye. Ms. Hirono. Ms. Hirono, no. Ms. Baldwin. Ms. Baldwin, no. Mr. Justice. Mr. Justice, aye. Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, no. Mr. Cotton. Mr. Cotton, aye. Mr. Booker. Mr. Booker, no. Mr. Lujan. Mr. Lujan, no. Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed, no. Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett, no. Mr. Cruz. Mr. Cruz, aye. Mr. McCormick. Mr. McCormick,
Tennessee,
aye.
Montana, Maine, Virginia.
Ms. Also Brooks. Ms. Also Brooks, no. Mr. Hickenlooper. Mr. Hickenlooper, no. Mr. Gallego. Mr. Gallego, no. Mr. Budd. Mr. Budd, aye. Mr. Mullen. Mr. Mullen, aye. Mr. Van Hollen. Mr. Van Hollen, no. Mr. Blumenthal. Mr. Blumenthal, no. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Hawley, aye. Mr. Tillis. Mr. Tillis, aye. Mr. Schumer. Mr. Schumer, no. Mr. Young, aye.
The ayes are 51, the nays are 46. The motion is agreed to. The clerk will report the nomination.
Department of Health and Human Services, James O'Neill of California to be Deputy Secretary.
Under the previous order, the Senate stands in recess until 4 p.m.